discussion very quickly. Now, for startups in Lagos, Africa's largest city, appears to be a land of promise. Yes, with its huge addressable and population of more than 20 million people and a tech ecosystem that's bursting with energy and dynamism. In fact, the local startup ecosystem as at 2017 was valued at $2 billion, making it the most valuable on the continent. According to the 2021 Global Startup Ecosystem Index, which was released by Startup Blink, Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria, overtook Nairobi, Kenya, to become Africa's top startup ecosystem, ranking 122nd globally. This significant milestone has shown that the growth of the tech sector in Lagos almost feels inevitable, a natural extension of just how much the city draws everything into its orbit, as the centralized nature of the city has spurred innovation, even as entrepreneurs now bemoan just how concentrated Lagos is. It will also interest you to know that Lagos was also ranked in the global top 50 cities for e-commerce and retail technology in the global top 100 for both transportation, technology, and education technology. Well, to discuss this and, of course, understand this better, I have joining me live in our Lagos studio. He is a special advisor to the Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, on innovation and technology. And Mr. Tunbosun Alake, it's good to see you in the studio.
Thanks for having me, Tolu.
Yes. Before we go into our discussion, seeing you alone we need to talk about this. We've seen the effects of this invasion, Ukraine and all of that, on stock prices, on the oil market. What do you think will be the effects, looking at the startup ecosystem at this time where we are all looking towards that end?
So thanks for having me again. The startup ecosystem in Lagos, I think in Nigeria as a whole, last year raised between anywhere from 700 to about 1.2 billion dollars. So we are thinking an average of $1 billion was raised by startups in Nigeria. A significant portion of that is concentrated in Lagos. And also a significant portion of that was done by international investors. So international investors bringing in their funds into the local ecosystem, because Lagos, Nigeria is seen as the next growth frontier, right? And so we were expecting that monetary policy, the Federal Reserve in the US will tighten monetary policy, which will make it probably less easier to borrow money. It will have much more tightening for investors, and so not as much money to throw around. And so with the invasion again, you are looking at growth pressures, because with the rise in oil prices, there will be a corresponding rise in commodity prices. So investors are likely to pivot to commodities rather than other parts of the economy. So that might have some effect on the startup ecosystem, especially technology-enabled businesses in other sectors, right? Because in times like these, investors usually run to safer assets, right? And so there might be some tightening. The growth trajectory right now could be affected because rising oil prices and all of that. So there will be less money to play around, right? So there might be some consolidation. There might be some tightening of budgets here and there. But overall, there's still going to be growth, but we don't know if it's going to be as much as what we've seen if this invasion and the state of affairs continues.
Very interesting. It's a talk everywhere. But let's come back home. Let's come back to Lagos and start about the role of the state in startup enablement. What is the state really doing to make the environment so conducive, enabling for people to start startup businesses?
It's a great question. And Lagos's view of the startup ecosystem is that it's a significant engine of growth, right? It's now a significant attractor of FDI into the Lagos economy. And so it's important that Lagos continues that enablement. One of the things driving the growth of the startup ecosystem in Lagos Number one, of course, we all know the large market size, right? A market of 20 million people and counting is very attractive for any investor. We have the talent that is nascent in Lagos, as you well know, from developers to business model experts, business development experts. You have a range of talent that exists in Lagos. So these factors really drive the growth of the ecosystem. And of course, in Lagos as well, over the past couple of years, you have a steady market environment. You have a steady government that, from time to time, in a sense, you know what you're going to get in Lagos State. And so that is really driving the growth in Lagos. And so what the Lagos State government wants to do is put a bunch of levers in place to continue that growth. And so Lagos State itself is also being involved in the startup ecosystem. So right now, through the Lagos State Science Research and Innovation Council, we fund startups directly through grants, right? Grants from anywhere. We have a ceiling of about 5 million naira. So different startups at different sectors could apply for grants. This provides them the initial runway. Most investors look at minimum viable products, and they look for startups that have at least proven themselves in the market, have raised some money. But in LASRIC, we are more lenient, right? We want to give startups that initial runway to be able to grow their businesses. Apart from funding startups directly, we also enable startups with the resources that they require to grow. And so through the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, there's a program called Lagos Innovates. So what Lagos Innovate does is that they give startups vouchers to use at innovation hubs and co-working spaces. So for startups that require internet service, they require an office space, they require startup to startup engagement, probably to leverage on the multiplicity of talent that is available. So the LSCTF funds gives startups vouchers to use to redeem at these innovation hubs and co-working spaces. So we enable startups directly. And what Lagos State is beginning to do now is to contribute to the policy enactment, to be able to enable startups to register quickly, get access to finance quickly. So we contributed quite a bit to the startup bill that the president just assented to. And we are also domesticating it so that the apparatus of Lagos is able to assist and enable startups within the ecosystem to be able to grow much rapidly to 10x, 20x their capital.
Very interesting, great stuff. Way to start this conversation, because I wanted to ask you what's actually driving that position, but it's going to be intertwined, because what other programs, because you've highlighted some of what government is doing to make the environment more conducive, if I'm allowed, but what other programs are you using to drive the science and tech in Lagos State?
So whether it's startups, whether it's established companies, they all need communication infrastructure. True. And one of the major things that we are doing currently, and I've mentioned this in previous programs, is the Metro Fiber project.
I wanted to ask
that Lagos State is doing. I think it's one of the largest publicly funded Metro Fiber projects in West Africa. And so apart from us even just deploying fiber optics to places of interest, so government buildings, hospitals, schools, and things of that nature, we are also deploying fiber optic ducts. These ducts house the fiber optic cables that other infrastructure players can deploy within the communication ecosystem in Lagos. And so you have companies like MTN, Airtel, that want to spread their communication infrastructure across the landscape. It's now cheaper to do that, as opposed to them digging the ground and getting involved in civil works or civic works to spread their infrastructure. This definitely adds to the overheads. But what Lagos State is now doing is de-risking that market and allowing infrastructure players to spread their infrastructure. And what we hope to see is as the infrastructure companies save on deployment costs, these savings can be passed on to customers and of course democratize the space a little bit. Then you have smaller players can also come into the market and focus on product innovation, because the less money you have to spend on infrastructure, the more you can invest in offering customers much more innovative products, much cheaper products to drive their business. So apart from actually deploying the infrastructure, we are de-risking the market for fiber optic players so that the knock-on effect can be felt by the customers, better products, cheaper products to drive their businesses. So that's one of the projects we are doing. Another through the Lagos State Science Research and Innovation Council is research funding. And this is a major focus for Lagos State right now. At this time, we are funding about 50 research projects across 4 universities. And a number of these projects are patent pending, which means that they are seeking...
Some of your events there, the pictures.
Yeah, they are seeking original invention status. That's what a patent does. When you are granted a patent through a research project, it's basically what that patent is saying is that your idea or your invention is original. That means probably nobody else has it, right? And it can create a new market for companies and things like that. So we found that in science and tech, for us to grow the economy of Lagos, for us to create new pathways for the economy, we need to invest in research, right? And this has been the focus over the past 18 months of the Science Research and Innovation Council. So these are some of the programs that we are doing to not just enable businesses, but enable new pathways for the economy in Lagos through technology.
Interesting, but let's look at some benefits and of course danger signs that you might see in these numerous venture raises in the market. How does this, what are you seeing? What are some of this?
So if you've been following the news quite a bit, and we are quite excited about it, there have been numerous raises, investments into startups in the ecosystem. In fact, one of the shining lights of the ecosystem, Flutterwave, just raised about $250 million to take them up to a $3 billion valuation, right? And there have been numerous raises across different sectors in the startup ecosystem. And so one of the benefits that is going to bring is that it's opening up the market for new entrants. So opportunities for startups, opportunities for entrepreneurs, they get wider access, right? Because as these raises are going on, the opportunities for entrepreneurs will open up. So more VCs will tend to look at the market and try to find out, okay, what is going on? Do you understand? So there are going to be more opportunities for entrepreneurs. There's going to be more capital in the market to grow businesses, and that's a good sign. But in any gold rush, we do have to, look at some of the drawbacks as well. With some investors, right, could be investing in some business models that might not make sense, just because there's just a rush. We want to get the next big idea. We want to get the next Flutterwave, or we want to get the next Paystack, and so there is that danger of that gold rush effect, right? But ultimately, we see some of the benefits outweighing the drawbacks, right? We think there's going to be consolidation as things tighten a little bit. So there'll be more solid businesses that will be built at the end of the day. And so what I would, encourage entrepreneurs is have a very solid business model that can stand turbulent times, right? Just like the one that we're going into now with the Ukraine invasion. This will definitely shake up markets. Investors will be more wary. So they would look at business models much more circumspectly, right? And so it's going to be up to entrepreneurs to make sure that their business model is solid. They have a ready market and a market that wants to pay for that service or product. And so, yes, there's going to be probably less money flowing around, but there's going to be more discipline as things tighten up. So some drawbacks, but we think that the advantages will be more than the disadvantages.
Interesting. So let's wrap up now. Where do you see the future of startups market as we move on, even in the year and of course beyond?
Yeah, so we hope to see more growth, even as the state invests in startups and enables startups, and provides the enabling laws and the policies for much greater growth. Like I said, there will be consolidation.
Yeah, there will be.
As things tighten up, as once the Federal Reserve in the US raises interest rates.
But that will also affect the economy one way or the other.
Absolutely. It's going to affect a lot of sectors, right? Because it's going to be harder to raise money. Money is going to be more expensive to raise. So investors that are investing are going to look at the businesses that they are investing. Look, which one is much safer? Which one would I get a sure return on investment? You know, some people will shift to bonds and of course commodities. And so for entrepreneurs, it will be an opportunity to really double down on things that work, right? And not just the fly-by-night business model. But overall, we do still see some positive signs. We are still considered the growth frontier. That's, you know, all the macroeconomics being stable to a point. We do hope that the macroeconomics do get stable. But positivity, at least from the Lagos perspective, is what we see.
Before I let you go, it just touched me again. It crossed my mind, the smart city thing. How well is the technology aspect of the things agenda? Because I just thought about that now. How well are you supporting the achievement of this, and what's happening with the smart city thing?
Absolutely. The smart city project is well on the way. Right now, the first phase of the smart city project under the themes agenda is the Safe City project. That's the smart cameras, the CCT cameras that are deployed at various hotspots across the city. And so far, we've done about 300 smart cameras that enable security enforcement and traffic enforcement across different parts of the state. And so this is supposed to help first responders to trouble areas, to emergency locations and things like that. So that is well on the way in terms of implementation. There are other areas of the smart city agenda that are also being worked on at the moment. Through the Ministry of Health, the Smart Health Information Platform is also underway. There are a number of partners that the Ministry of Health is talking to on that as well. And different areas that are being worked on as well. In terms of smart government, right now, a ton of business processes are being re-engineered in government so that the effective workflow systems can be implemented. And so government to citizen interaction is much more efficient. You know, you save time, you save money, and the like. So there are multiple levels of the smart city implementation going on at the same time. And very soon, as we've seen even in the Metro Fiber project now, we have partners in the private sector who are already taking advantage of it. So as time goes on, we'll begin to see some of the benefits in the other levels of the Smart City project. Interesting
chart. They have been speaking to the special advisor to Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, on innovation and technology, and it's Mr. Tunbosun Alake. Thank you so much for dropping by the studio today to talk to us, make us understand all of this. We appreciate this.
Thank you so much.
All